The vast chamber of the Kepler Station Grand Assembly Hall fell silent as the final vote was tallied. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood motionless at the center of the circular podium, his expression carefully neutral, despite the crushing disappointment washing over him. The holographic display above showed the devastating results: 189 against, 12 in favor, 4 abstentions. Humanity's petition to join the Galactic Council had been rejected by an overwhelming majority. "The Council has spoken," announced Cathar, the Zephyrian Empire's representative and de facto leader of the opposition. His translucent exoskeleton glimmered under the ambient light, mandibles clicking with barely concealed satisfaction. "The species known as humans has been deemed insufficiently developed for full Council membership at this time." Jake forced himself to maintain diplomatic composure. "May I ask the Council to clarify the specific criteria we failed to meet? This represents the 5th consecutive rejection of Earth's petition in as many decades." A ripple of discomfort moved through the assembly. The Melnoran delegate, a being of shifting light patterns, brightened briefly. "Ambassador Morrison, the Council's decision is final. The specific deliberations are, as always, classified under Statute 342B. "Of course," Jake replied, his voice steady despite the bitterness rising in his throat. "Earth thanks the Council for its consideration." He gathered his materials with deliberate precision as the representatives began dispersing. Only a handful, mostly from younger civilizations or those who had faced similar obstacles in their own ascension, approached to offer sympathetic gestures. The majority avoided eye contact, already engaged in conversations about other matters, as if humanity's rejection was of no consequence. As Jake prepared to leave the chamber, he felt a presence beside him. Lisa Grant, Earth's military liaison and his close friend, had joined him. Her ceremonial uniform contrasted sharply with the exotic garb of the alien dignitaries. "So that's it," she whispered, anger evident in her clipped words. 50 years of diplomacy, technological exchange, and proving ourselves, and they still shut the door in our faces?" "Not here," Jake murmured, nodding toward the exit. "We're still being observed." The journey back to the Earth delegation's quarters was silent. Ryan Carter, their chief scientific advisor, was waiting when they arrived. His normally enthusiastic expression had been replaced by one of resignation. "I watched the broadcast," Ryan said simply. "Not even close." Jake sank into a chair, finally allowing his mask of diplomatic neutrality to drop. "They never intended to accept us. This whole process has been an elaborate charade." Lisa paced the room, military precision in each step. "The question is, why? We've met every published criterion. Our technological development has accelerated dramatically since first contact. We've established colonies on Mars and the asteroid belt. We've contributed to interspecies research initiatives. What more could they possibly want?" "It's not about what we've accomplished," Jake said, his voice hollow. "It's about who we are." Ryan nodded slowly. "I've been analyzing voting patterns across all 5 rejection votes. There's a clear coalition against us, led by the oldest member species, the Zephyrians, the Melnoran Collective, the Vox Imperium. They've voted against us every time, and they control enough proxy votes to ensure we never succeed." "But what's their motive?" Lisa demanded. "What threat could we possibly pose to civilizations thousands of years more advanced than our own?" Jake stared out the viewport at the breathtaking structure of Kepler Station, a marvel of engineering that stretched nearly 20 kilometers from end to end, housing representatives from over 200 sentient species. Earth's admission to this body would have opened doors to advanced technologies, trade routes, and protection agreements that would have transformed human civilization overnight. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I intend to find out." The communication panel chimed, interrupting their discussion. The holographic display revealed the stern face of Admiral Kate Sullivan, Earth Defense Force commander. Ambassador Morrison, your team is being recalled effective immediately, she announced without preamble. The president is convening an emergency session. Jake exchanged concerned glances with his colleagues. Has something happened, Admiral? Not over this channel, Sullivan replied cryptically. Your transport leaves in 3 hours. Sullivan out. As the communication ended, Jake felt a sense of foreboding settle over him. In 50 years of interstellar relations, Earth had never recalled its delegation from Kepler Station. Pack your things, he told Lisa and Ryan. I have a feeling things are about to get complicated. The transport vessel accelerated away from Kepler Station, its quantum drive humming softly as it prepared for the jump back to the Sol system. Jake watched through the viewport as the massive structure receded, becoming just another point of light among the stars, a symbol of everything humanity had aspired to and been denied. Ambassador, the pilot called from the cockpit. We've received encrypted transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Jake made his way forward, accepting the secure tablet. The message was brief, but chilling. All Earth vessels denied resupply at Council stations. Research exchange programs terminated. Diplomatic channels restricted to emergency communications only. They're isolating us, he murmured, passing the tablet to Lisa. This goes beyond rejection. They're implementing a soft quarantine. Lisa's expression hardened as she read. This is coordinated. They waited until after the vote to begin their campaign. The question is whether this is punitive or preventative, Ryan observed, joining them. Are they punishing us for our persistence, or preventing us from something they fear we might do? Jake had no answer, but the question haunted him throughout the journey home. By the time their vessel entered Earth orbit, reports were flooding in from across human space. Scientific collaboration projects suddenly canceled. Trade agreements with Council species mysteriously renegotiated with less favorable terms. Cultural exchange programs abruptly ended. The pattern was clear. Humanity was being systematically isolated from the galactic community. Washington, D.C. had changed little in the decades since first contact, though the skyline now featured the distinctive architecture of the Interstellar Affairs Complex. Jake and his team were escorted directly from their landing pad to the underground Situation Room, where President Helen Carter awaited them. The president rose as they entered, her expression grave. Ambassador Morrison, welcome home, though I wish the circumstances were different. Madam President, Jake acknowledged with a respectful nod. I apologize for our failure to secure council membership. The failure wasn't yours, she replied firmly. Please, all of you, be seated. What we're about to discuss requires absolute secrecy. The room contained only a handful of individuals: Director Peter Hayes of Intelligence Services, Dr. Amy Collins of Advanced Materials Research, and Ben Torres, Earth's leading expert on alien computing systems. 3 hours after the council vote, President Carter began, we detected a pattern of activities that can only be described as a coordinated effort to isolate Earth and its colonies. It goes beyond mere diplomatic rebuke. This appears to be a long-planned strategy. Director Hayes activated a holographic display showing dozens of incident reports. Supply shipments canceled. Research stations denied access to shared databases. Communication channels to non-human systems experiencing technical difficulties. Individually, each could be explained away. Collectively, they paint a disturbing picture. The council is afraid of us, Jake said quietly. But why now? What's changed? This, Dr. Collins said, gesturing to another display. It showed what appeared to be a derelict spacecraft, unlike any Jake had seen before. The New Horizon deep space exploration vessel discovered this 3 weeks ago, drifting in the Kuiper Belt. We believe it's been there for thousands of years. Ryan leaned forward, his scientific curiosity piqued. That design doesn't match any known council species. Exactly, President Carter confirmed. It predates the Council itself. We believe it belongs to a species known in Council records only as the Architects, supposedly extinct for over 100,000 years. The Architects? Jake echoed. I've seen references in historical archives, but they're always vague. The species credited with establishing the first interstellar network before mysteriously disappearing. Their disappearance wasn't mysterious, Director Hayes said grimly. It was genocide. The New Horizon team found evidence aboard that vessel, records that suggest the founding members of what would become the Galactic Council were responsible for the extinction of the Architects. A stunned silence fell over the room. That can't be possible, Lisa finally said. The Council's founding principle is non-aggression and mutual protection. History is written by the victors, Ben Torres remarked, especially when the losers are completely eradicated. There's more, President Carter continued. The Architect's technology was far more advanced than anything the Council currently possesses. The founding species appropriated that technology, but have kept its true origins secret, doling out discoveries over millennia to maintain their technological superiority. And somehow they know we found this vessel, Jake concluded, the pieces falling into place. That's why they're moving against us now. We believe so, Director Hayes confirmed. Though our security protocols were absolute, something must have leaked. The timing is too coincidental. What's our next move? Lisa asked, her military mind already calculating strategies. President Carter's expression was resolute. We have two objectives. First, we must protect ourselves from whatever the Council is planning. Their current actions suggest they're testing our response, preparing for something more severe. And second, Jake prompted. We continue studying the Architect vessel, she replied. If what we've discovered is true, it could fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain John Miller and Dr. Karen White are leading the research team on site, and they've made remarkable progress already. Dr. Collins activated another display, showing complex schematics. The Architect's technology operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. Their approach to quantum manipulation, materials science, and computational systems is elegant in ways our scientists find almost familiar, despite being millennia beyond our current capabilities. Familiar? Ryan questioned. Yes, Ben Torres elaborated. It's odd, but many of our researchers have reported that the Architect systems seem intuitive to work with, as if they were designed with human cognition in mind. We've made more progress in 3 weeks than we logically should have. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Could that be why the Council fears us? Some connection between humans and these Architects? It's a theory we're exploring, President Carter acknowledged. For now, I'm implementing Operation Self-Reliance. We'll accelerate our internal development programs, reduce dependency on Council technologies, and strengthen our defensive capabilities. Ambassador Morrison, I want you to work with Director Hayes to identify potential allies among the non-Council species. And if the Council takes more direct action against us? Lisa asked. The President's gaze was steely. Then we'll be ready. As the meeting concluded, Jake found himself drawn to the images of the Architect vessel. Something about its design resonated with him on a level he couldn't articulate. Elegant curves and geometric patterns that somehow felt right. A distant memory stirred, like a dream half remembered upon waking. Jake? Lisa's voice pulled him from his thoughts. You look like you've seen a ghost. Not a ghost, he replied quietly. Just wondering what secrets that ship really holds, and why it feels like we were meant to find it. The months that followed were transformative for human civilization, faced with increasing isolation from the galactic community. Earth turned inward, focusing on self-sufficiency with remarkable results. The necessity of developing alternatives to Council technologies sparked an unprecedented wave of innovation. Dr. Amy Collins led a revolution in material science, creating substitutes for previously imported exotic materials. Her team's development of a new class of programmable metamaterials reduced Earth's dependency on Council resources by nearly 40% in just 6 months. Ben Torres and his division made similar breakthroughs in computational systems, reverse engineering and improving upon alien designs to create Earth's first true quantum neural networks. The resulting increase in processing power accelerated research across all fields. Lisa Grant coordinated with Admiral Sullivan to reorganize Earth's defense forces, implementing new tactics and technologies developed from studying historical records of Council military operations. Training simulations showed dramatic improvements in effectiveness against theoretical Council aggression. Meanwhile, Jake and Director Hayes established a clandestine network of contacts among species sympathetic to Earth's situation, mostly younger civilizations who had faced similar treatment from the Council's old guard. These discreet alliances provided valuable intelligence about Council activities and covert channels for resource exchange. Throughout it all, the research team aboard the Architect vessel, now codenamed Legacy, continued to make startling discoveries. Captain John Miller oversaw security, while Dr. Karen White led the scientific exploration, regularly sending encrypted data packets back to Earth. 6 months after the Council rejection, Jake found himself once again in the Situation Room, where President Carter had called an emergency meeting of the leadership team. "We've received a priority transmission from the Legacy team," the President announced without preamble. "Dr. White believes they've accessed the vessel's main database." The holographic display activated, showing Dr. Karen White's tired but excited face. "Madam President, Ambassador, everyone, what we've discovered changes everything. The Architects weren't just another ancient species. They were the first, the original spacefaring civilization in our galaxy." She gestured to displays behind her, showing complex genetic sequences. "More importantly, we've found evidence that the Architects didn't merely disappear. They were systematically hunted down by an alliance of younger species, the same species that now form the Council's leadership." "We suspected as much," Director Hayes noted, "but confirmation is valuable." "That's not all," Dr. White continued, her voice tense with controlled excitement. "The Architects anticipated their extinction. They left behind contingencies." "What kind of contingencies?" Jake asked, leaning forward. "Genetic contingencies," she replied. "The Architects dispersed their genetic material to compatible worlds throughout the galaxy. They encoded their legacy into the DNA of promising species, dormant sequences that would gradually activate as those species evolved." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. "Are you suggesting—" Ryan began. Dr. White nodded. "We've compared the genetic markers from the Architect database with human DNA. The match is undeniable. We are their descendants. Ambassador Morrison, humanity carries the legacy of the Architects in our genes." Jake felt the room spin around him, the familiar resonance he'd felt when viewing the vessel's design, the intuitive understanding human researchers experienced when working with Architect technology. It all made terrible, wonderful sense. "The Council knows," he whispered. "Or at least, they suspect. That's why they've kept us out all these years. Not because we're too primitive, but because they fear what we might become." "Precisely," Dr. White confirmed. "And based on data we've recovered, humanity has progressed further along the activation sequence than any other seeded species. We're manifesting Architect traits more prominently than any other descendant population. This is why they're isolating us," Director Hayes concluded. "They're preparing to eliminate a potential threat, just as they did with the original Architects." President Carter's expression hardened. "Then we need to accelerate our preparations. Dr. White, what else have you discovered aboard the vessel?" "A quantum communication network," the scientist replied. "The Architects created a subspace communication system that operates outside conventional channels. The network nodes are dormant, but they exist throughout the galaxy. If activated, They could transmit data instantaneously to every world within the network. Could we use this network to broadcast what we've discovered? Jake asked. Let the galaxy know the truth about the Council's origins? Theoretically, yes, Dr. White affirmed. But activation requires specific quantum signatures we're still working to decode. Make it your top priority, President Carter ordered. This may be our best defense, the truth. As the meeting continued, Jake found his mind racing with implications. Humanity wasn't just fighting for its place among the stars. They were unwitting inheritors of an ancient legacy, carrying the genetic memory of a civilization that had once spanned the galaxy. The irony was almost painful. After decades of looking outward, seeking validation from the Council, Earth's salvation might lie in embracing what made them unique, the very heritage the Council had tried to suppress. We need to consolidate our forces, Lisa was saying, as Jake refocused on the discussion. The Mars colonies are particularly vulnerable to blockade. Agreed, Admiral Sullivan responded via holographic link. I've already redeployed the 4th Fleet to provide additional security. Jake cleared his throat. There's another angle we should consider. If other species learn that the Council's founding was built on genocide, it could fracture their authority. Many civilizations joined for protection and advancement, not to perpetuate ancient crimes. A propaganda war alongside our other preparations. Director Hayes nodded thoughtfully. It has merit, though we'd need irrefutable evidence. Which is exactly what the legacy contains, Ryan pointed out. We just need to ensure that evidence reaches the right audiences. President Carter surveyed the room, her resolve evident. Very well. We'll proceed on all fronts. Director Hayes, coordinate with Ambassador Morrison on the information campaign. Admiral Sullivan, continue military preparations but maintain defensive posture only. We cannot appear to be the aggressors. Dr. Collins, Mr. Torres, push your teams to complete any critical research. And someone get me direct access to Dr. White. I want daily updates on that communication network. As the meeting dispersed, Jake found himself standing before the wall-sized display of Earth and its colonies, blue marble, red planet, and the scattered lights of asteroid habitations. A civilization that had dreamed of the stars for millennia, only to find itself fighting for survival among them. We'll survive this, Lisa said, joining him. We always do. Jake nodded slowly. Yes, but I'm starting to think our goal shouldn't be just survival. Maybe it's time humanity embraced its heritage and changed the galaxy in the process. On board the Legacy, Captain John Miller conducted his regular security sweep, moving methodically through the ancient vessel's curving corridors. After 6 months, the team had mapped only 30% of the massive ship, each new section revealing wonders that defied conventional understanding of physics and material science. Captain, called one of his security officers, Dr. White requests your presence in what they're calling the Genesis Chamber. Miller acknowledged the message and made his way deeper into the vessel. The environmental systems had been functioning flawlessly since they'd boarded, maintaining perfect temperature and atmosphere, despite having been dormant for millennia. It was just one of many mysteries that surrounded the architect technology. The Genesis Chamber was a vast spherical room at the heart of the vessel, its walls covered in flowing scripts and diagrams that seemed to shift subtly when not directly observed. Dr. Karen White stood at the central console, her fingers dancing across interfaces that responded to her touch as if designed specifically for human hands. Captain, she greeted him without looking up. We've made a breakthrough. Miller noted the excitement in her voice, a rare departure from her usually measured tone. The communication network? Yes, but it's far more significant than we realized. She gestured to the displays surrounding them, showing a complex web of connections spanning a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. This isn't just a communication system. It's a quantum entanglement network connecting every world where the architects seeded their genetic material. How many worlds are we talking about? Thousands, she replied, including dozens within Council space that have developed sentient life. The architects didn't just seed Earth. They created a diaspora across the galaxy. And the network was designed to activate when any seeded species reached a specific developmental threshold. Miller studied the displays. Noting the concentration of points within regions he recognized as Council territory. They don't know, do they? These other descendants? I doubt it, Dr. White said. The Council has likely suppressed any evidence, just as they've done with us. But the network doesn't lie. There are architect descendants throughout the galaxy, many of them Council members. So when you said we've progressed further along the activation sequence, I meant that humans appear to be the first to reach the threshold required to access the network, she confirmed, which means we have both opportunity and responsibility. Miller considered the implications. You think we can activate it? I know we can, Dr. White replied with certainty. And when we do, every descended species will receive the truth about their heritage and about what the Council did to their ancestors. That would cause chaos throughout Council space. It would cause justice, she corrected firmly. The Council's authority is built on a foundation of lies. The truth may be disruptive, but it's necessary. Miller nodded slowly. I'll inform Earth Command. This changes our strategic position significantly. As he turned to leave, Dr. White called after him. Captain, there's something else you should know. The activation sequence. It requires a genetic key, a living descendant with sufficient architect markers. Do we have such an individual? Her expression was unreadable. According to our analysis of the genetic profiles Earth sent us, yes. Ambassador Jake Morrison has the highest concentration of activated architect genes we've seen. The network will respond to him, and possibly only to him. Miller felt the weight of this revelation. You're saying our best chance of survival rests on getting Ambassador Morrison to this vessel? I'm saying the architects chose their inheritors carefully, Dr. White replied. Perhaps Ambassador Morrison's role in this story was determined long before he was born. Back on Earth, tensions with the Council had escalated from diplomatic cold shoulder to overt hostility. Council vessels now patrolled the edges of the Sol system, officially for security monitoring, but effectively establishing a soft blockade. Communication with human colonies beyond the asteroid belt had become increasingly difficult as Council ships intercepted and delayed transmissions. In response, Earth had accelerated its self-sufficiency programs with remarkable success. Dr. Amy Collins' new materials had enabled the construction of more advanced defense platforms. Ben Torres had implemented quantum encryption protocols that frustrated Council monitoring. Lisa Grant had overseen the reorganization of Earth's fleet into more mobile, adaptive formations capable of rapid response. Through it all, Jake had worked tirelessly to maintain connections with potential allies, cultivating relationships with representatives from younger species who chafed under Council restrictions. These discreet channels had become Earth's primary source of intelligence about Council activities. They're preparing for something significant, Jake reported during a strategy session. Our sources indicate unusual movement among Council military vessels, multiple battle groups converging near Kepler Station. Director Hayes nodded grimly. Consistent with our other intelligence. They're assembling a force large enough to overwhelm our defenses if it came to direct confrontation. But they haven't moved against us yet, President Carter observed. Why the delay? Internal politics, Jake suggested. Not all Council members support action against Earth. The younger species particularly are questioning the hardline approach. That gives us an opportunity, Lisa noted, if we could widen those divisions. We need the network, Ryan interjected. Without broadcasting the evidence from the legacy, we're just spreading rumors. With it, we force the Council to confront its own history. President Carter turned to the holographic image of Dr. Karen White. Doctor, What's the status of the network activation? We've decoded the activation protocols, White reported. But, as I informed Captain Miller, it requires a specific genetic signature to initiate. Based on our analysis, Ambassador Morrison possesses the necessary markers. All eyes turned to Jake, who felt a sudden weight of expectation settle upon him. "You're saying I need to go to the Legacy," he said slowly. "Yes, Ambassador," Dr. White confirmed. "The system appears designed to recognize your specific genetic pattern. We believe the architects implemented safeguards to ensure only a compatible descendant could activate the network. If the Council realizes Jake is leaving Earth, they'll do everything possible to intercept him," Lisa warned. "The blockade is specifically designed to prevent access to the Legacy." "Then we need a diversion," Admiral Sullivan suggested. "Something significant enough to draw attention away from a single transport." "More than a diversion," Director Hayes said thoughtfully. "We need to create a situation that forces the Council to redistribute their forces." President Carter considered for a moment, then nodded decisively. "Admiral Sullivan, prepare Operation Starbreak. If the Council wants to blockade Earth, we'll give them more targets than they can handle." The plan that emerged was audacious. Earth would simultaneously activate all its new defense platforms, launch its recently completed next-generation vessels, and establish communication with every human outpost in the solar system. A demonstration of capabilities that would force the Council to spread its monitoring forces thin. Meanwhile, Jake would be transported to the Legacy aboard a modified research vessel, using the distraction to slip through the blockade. The journey would be dangerous, with no guarantee of success, but the alternatives were increasingly grim. "Ambassador," President Carter said privately after the meeting concluded, "I want to be clear about what we're asking. This mission carries extreme personal risk." Jake nodded, resolution hardening within him. "I understand, Madam President. But if there's even a chance of preventing conflict while securing humanity's future, I have to try. The fate of our species may rest on your shoulders," she said solemnly. "But know that whatever happens, Earth stands with you." 3 days later, as Earth's unprecedented display of technological advancement captured the Council's full attention, a nondescript research vessel slipped away from the night side of Earth's moon. Aboard, Jake Morrison and a small crew began the perilous journey to the edge of the solar system, where the ancient Legacy waited. The voyage was tense, requiring multiple course adjustments to avoid Council patrols. Jake spent much of the journey studying the data from the Legacy, trying to understand the connection he apparently shared with the long-vanished architects. "It's strange," he confided to the ship's pilot as they entered the Kuiper Belt. "Looking at these designs, these symbols, they feel familiar somehow, as if I've seen them before, in a dream I can't quite remember." "Dr. White's team believes the activated genes include memory encoding," the pilot replied. "Fragments of architect knowledge embedded in your DNA, gradually awakening as you matured." Jake considered this. "So, part of me isn't me. I'm carrying someone else's memories? Or you're remembering your own heritage," the pilot suggested. "The person you were always meant to become." Before Jake could respond, the ship's sensors chimed urgently. "Council vessel detected," the tactical officer announced. "Patrol cruiser, bearing 045 Mark 12, on an intercept course." "They've spotted us," the pilot confirmed grimly. "Preparing evasive maneuvers." Jake moved to the command console. "No. If we run, they'll know something's valuable here. Continue on course, but transmit our research vessel identification. Act normal." The tense minutes that followed stretched like hours as the Council vessel approached. Scanning their ship thoroughly, Jake maintained an outward calm, though his heart pounded against his ribs. Finally, the Council ship adjusted course, continuing its patrol without challenging them. "They bought it," the tactical officer whispered, relief evident in his voice. "For now, Jake cautioned. But they'll report our position. We need to reach the legacy before they realize what we're doing. 2 hours later, they achieved visual contact with the massive architect vessel, its elegant form barely visible against the backdrop of space, its surface absorbing rather than reflecting light. As they approached, details emerged, flowing lines and geometric patterns that seemed to shift subtly as Jake observed them, resonating with something deep within his consciousness. A docking bay opened as they neared, responding to signals from Earth Command. Captain Miller was waiting as they disembarked, his expression reflecting both relief and urgency. Ambassador Morrison, welcome aboard. Dr. White is waiting in the Genesis chamber. We need to move quickly. Our sensors detected that Council patrol, and there's a high probability they'll return with reinforcements. As they moved through the vessel's corridors, Jake felt a growing sense of recognition. The architecture, the ambient lighting that seemed to respond to his presence, the subtle vibration beneath his feet, all felt inexplicably right, as if he was returning to a home he'd never known he had. The Genesis chamber took his breath away, vast and perfectly spherical, its walls covered in luminous patterns that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. At the center stood Dr. Karen White, monitoring displays that showed the status of the dormant network spanning the galaxy. "Ambassador," she greeted him with evident relief. "Thank you for coming. We have little time." "Tell me what I need to do," Jake replied, moving to join her at the central console. "The interface is designed to respond to your genetic signature and cognitive patterns," she explained. "You'll need to place your hands on the control nodes and focus your thoughts on activation. The system should recognize you and initiate the sequence." Jake positioned himself at the console, placing his palms on the smooth, slightly warm surfaces indicated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nodes began to glow with an inner light that spread up his arms in delicate patterns, matching the designs on the chamber walls. A sensation like an electric current passed through his body, not painful, but intensely present. Images flashed through his mind, stars and planets, vast cities of impossible architecture, faces of beings both familiar and alien. Knowledge poured into him, history, science, philosophy of the architects. Too much to process consciously, yet somehow integrating with his understanding. Throughout the ship, systems long dormant hummed to life. The walls of the Genesis chamber blazed with light as the quantum network awakened, establishing connections across vast interstellar distances. "It's working," Dr. White breathed, watching her displays in awe. "The network is activating, node by node, system by system." Jake barely heard her. His consciousness had expanded beyond the confines of his body, reaching along the quantum pathways to touch minds across the galaxy. Other descendants of the architects, their dormant heritage responding to the call of the network. Through this connection, he transmitted the truth, the complete historical record stored within the legacy. The architects rise as the first interstellar civilization, their policy of seeding compatible worlds with their genetic material. The rebellion of their client species, led by those who would become the Council founders. The systematic genocide that followed, and the Council's millennia-long suppression of the truth. Jake felt the shock ripple through the network as countless minds received this revelation. Anger, disbelief, grief, and underneath it all, a growing sense of recognition and kinship. The descendants were awakening to their shared heritage, their common ancestry, transcending the artificial divisions imposed by the Council. Gradually, Jake's awareness returned to his physical body. He found himself supported by Captain Miller, his legs barely able to hold him upright. "Did it work?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Dr. White was staring at her displays in amazement. "Beyond our expectations, the transmission reached every node in the network simultaneously. Every descended species has received the complete record. And now we brace for the response," Captain Miller said grimly, helping Jake to a seat. The Council won't take this lying down. As if summoned by his words, the ship's alert system activated. Multiple vessels approaching, announced the tactical officer over the communication system. Council signatures. Heavy combat configuration. How many? Miller demanded. At least 12 capital ships and, sir, battle formation. Jake struggled to his feet. We need to contact Earth. They need to know the network is active. Communications are being jammed, Dr. White reported. Standard Council tactic before an attack. Then we've done all we can here, Jake said, steadying himself. The truth is out. What happens next is up to the galaxy. The anticipated attack never came. As the Council vessels closed on the Legacy, their formation suddenly broke apart. Communications channels erupted with overlapping transmissions, demands for explanation, declarations of independence, withdrawal of forces. The Council, it seemed, was tearing itself apart from within. "What's happening?" Captain Miller asked, bewildered by the chaos unfolding on their tactical displays. The younger species, Jake realized. They're rebelling against the old guard. The truth about the architects has fractured the Council's authority. Not just the younger species, Dr. White added, monitoring the quantum network's data flow. Even within the founding civilizations, there's division. Populations are demanding answers from their leaders. Military units are standing down or declaring neutrality. For 3 tense days, the Legacy crew watched as the political landscape of the galaxy transformed. The Council's unified front collapsed as species after species withdrew support, demanding transparency and accountability. The blockade of Earth disintegrated as vessels returned to their home systems, their commanders unwilling to enforce the edicts of a discredited leadership. When communications with Earth were finally restored, Jake was greeted by the jubilant face of President Carter. "Ambassador, you've done it," she announced. "The Council's authority has collapsed. The truth has accomplished what decades of diplomacy and military preparation couldn't." "What's the situation there?" Jake asked. "Remarkable," she replied. "We're receiving communications from dozens of species. Apologies, offers of alliance, requests for shared access to the architect records. The galaxy is realigning itself, and humanity is at the center." "And the Council founders?" Her expression hardened slightly. "In disarray. Some are desperately trying to maintain control. Others are offering concessions and historical revisions. But their monopoly on power is broken." "Good," Jake said simply. "What are your orders?" "Return to Earth when it's safe to travel," President Carter instructed. "But the Legacy should remain secure. Its knowledge belongs to all architect descendants. But we need to ensure it's managed responsibly." "Understood, Madam President." As Earth emerged from isolation, a new interstellar order began to take shape. With the truth about the architects now widely known, descended species across the galaxy discovered their shared heritage, forming bonds that transcended traditional diplomatic relations. The Legacy became a symbol of this new unity, a repository of knowledge freely shared among all who carried the architect's genetic imprint. Earth, as home to the most advanced descended population, found itself in a position of unexpected influence, helping to establish a more equitable framework for interstellar cooperation. 3 months after the activation of the quantum network, Jake Morrison returned to Kepler Station. The Grand Assembly Hall, once the site of his greatest diplomatic defeat, stood empty. The Council that had once filled it, now dissolved, its authority repudiated by the very civilizations it had claimed to represent. Jake walked slowly to the central podium, where he had stood that day, feeling the weight of history. So much had changed. Humanity had not only survived the Council's attempt to isolate them, but had emerged stronger, more unified, and more connected to the galactic community than ever before. The doors at the far end of the chamber opened. Lisa Grant entered, now serving as Earth's military representative to the newly forming Galactic Assembly. "Feeling nostalgic?" she asked, joining him on the podium. "Reflecting," Jake replied. On how far we've come, and how much further we have to go. The new assembly convenes tomorrow, Lisa reminded him. As the recognized inheritors of the architect legacy, Earth will have a prominent voice. Jake nodded, gazing around the vast, empty chamber that would soon be filled with representatives of a truly united galaxy. One built on truth, transparency, and shared heritage rather than deception and hierarchy. We never needed their acceptance, he said quietly. We just needed to remember who we really are. And now the galaxy remembers with us, Lisa added. The architects may have been destroyed, but their legacy lives on, in us, and in every descended species across the stars. As they left the chamber together, Jake felt a sense of completion. The cycle of suppression that had begun with the architect's extinction had finally been broken. Humanity had not only reclaimed its rightful place among the stars, but had helped forge a new path forward, one that honored the past while embracing a future of unlimited potential. The stars, once so distant and unattainable, now beckoned with promise. And humanity, carrying the legacy of the galaxy's first great civilization, was ready to answer their call.